My name is Barbara, Barbara Schucko. I am from Brazil. I live in LA right now, and I'm a music producer. I compose, and I do audio engineering, and all that fun stuff. And I'm a musician as well. So, yeah, that's me. I got inspired, I think, for the first time I got into a studio to actually record my songs. I used to write songs when I was around 15 or so, and then I think the first time I went to a studio to record like all the instruments and everything, I think I was about 18 years old. And I was recording everything, and I had a very clear idea of what instruments I had. I wanted in this track, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I was looking at what the guys were doing in the, like, behind the glass, right? I'm in the booth recording my song, and there's the music producer on the other side, and his assistant, and I was like, huh, it'd be kind of cool to be on the other side, because, you know, like, after you have such an idea of what you want to put in the song and so on, so I wanted to learn more about it. And it really, and even knowing that came earlier, because my, not earlier, it was actually a late discovery, because I only started paying attention to music production when I was about 18. My dad had a Mac computer at home, and with that came GarageBand. That's like, that just comes with a computer. I was like, oh, cool. So, and I didn't really know what I was doing was music production, but I was putting the instruments together. I was like playing the guitar and just recording it again, another layer of it, and I was like, oh, this is fun. So, and recording the vocals, I was like, I can actually record harmonies for this, because I can just, you know, like, keep looping it. And that was just fun to do. I didn't even know what I was doing, but it was just really fun. And that was the first thing, because before that computer came along, I had to go to a studio to record even the simplest thing, you know, like even just recording myself with the guitar. I had to go to the studio, I had someone record it. It wasn't a thing to record at home. So that opened up a whole new world to me, and as soon as I found out that those careers were a possibility, that there weren't so many opportunities for that in Brazil. But when I saw it was an actual 4-year program in universities in the US, I was like, oh, that's actually a thing, that's a career. So that's when I really got inspired. Like, things went little by little, but from learning music to exploring with technology. And then when I did, I just fell in love with it, so. It's a real plus to be a musician first, I think. You don't have to. It's not a must. You know, like, there are so many ways to do, especially when you're an artist, when you're doing artistic things, creative things. There's never a straight path to follow. There are some people who start making beats on their computer, and that's fine. It's fun. But in terms of like what I've learned and how I did it, it's really great to be a musician first, because it helps you understand the people that you're working with, like the people who are your clients in the end. So it helps to know what it is to be recording your own song, and how special that feels, and how nerve-wracking that feels sometimes, you know, like, it's a really dear thing to your, like, oh my god, I'm giving this to somebody else to, you know, give their vision to it. And when you have that feeling as an artist, you know as a producer, how the artist is feeling when they give that song, how special that is when they trust that work with you. And beyond that, I mean, being a musician, learning how to play an instrument, basic keyboard knowledge, because nowadays we can use the keyboard to play different samples, right? The keyboard could have a piano sound, or it could have, you could play drums with your keyboard. You could play a guitar. You could play, there are a million sounds that you could do. So it's really cool to be able to navigate that instrument well. Knowing about music theory, in the end, it's important. Knowing the software that you're using, then we can come into technology. Really knowing that, and being passionate about learning, really, because when it comes to music and technology, all of those things, they keep evolving. They're not, it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna learn this instrument and then it's gonna be that's it. And so we're always learning, right? There's always that curve, and it's ever changing, and it can be, and we can take it both ways. It can be overwhelming, or it can be exciting, and always remembering that, because it does get overwhelming at times. There's so many things to learn, but if we take it one step at a time, at our own time, I think we end up getting used to that, and we're able to make it fun and just innovate with time and learn. So that's the main thing. I think curiosity is probably the best skill you can have, if that can be a skill. In every role that you have, you kind of pull some knowledge from other parts, right? So as a producer, sometimes I have to add like orchestral instruments to it. Like I have to add strings to a production. That's not necessarily being a composer, but that pulls a lot from that knowledge of getting a certain emotion, of giving space to a song, or so I pull a lot of knowledge from that, if that's the case. In terms of composing, when I'm a composer and pulling that knowledge from the production side, a lot of times I need to, on the composition, I need to bring drums. I need to compose. The last short film that I did, I composed a song for the end of it. I actually made lyrics for it, and I actually produced the final song that would go into the credits and so on. I think, and the director loved it. It's like, oh my god, like this is exactly what we're talking about. I'm like, cool. So that, and also being a producer, kind of like both sides, you have to listen to your client, be it the artist or the director, in terms of when you're a composer, and you have to really try to translate what they need. It's not always obvious. They're not always gonna speak in a language that we understand, especially when it's directors for film. A lot of the times they're not musicians, and they're gonna talk to you in terms of, like, it's not a musical term. They're gonna speak more into emotions and what the actor's doing and what they're trying to convey, and you need to translate all that into what instruments am I going to use, what style of music is it going to be. So it's very interesting, but that all plays into, like, I always learn from communicating with people. That on both jobs, that always helps me. But they're both very different jobs. They're not, as a composer, I'm usually composing for picture, so that adds a different element to it as well. But so we always learn from both, but they're always very different jobs. Technology plays a big role. Most of the time, most of my days I'm in front of a computer, and all day. So, and especially now, there's so much we can do at home. There's always that magic about going to the studio, and being at that place that so many people have recorded there and they left their mark there. It has that feel to it, right? Oh my god, this is happening, it's special, it's huge. But there's a magic of creating it from home too, that we have so many tools at our fingertips, and it makes it it's so powerful to have that, and it's something that's recent, in a way. So the technology, it allows us to manipulate the audio that we're working on, either creatively or technically. So that's super important to know how to do that. And I can record the instruments at home, like I have the microphone interface that's all connected to the computer. And if I have to sync it to video and find where the music needs to be lighter or stronger or emotive or powerful, where is that gonna change? I need to kind of plan that, make a map of what's gonna happen. So all of that plays into the technology, because the technology makes everything simpler when you know how to use it. And it gives you a lot of possibilities. And the more there's a balance between, especially as a producer and as a composer, I guess too, there's always a balance between creativity and the technical knowledge that we have. And the more we make that technical knowledge become second nature, and learn to troubleshoot when there's an issue, we kind of start learning oh, I've seen this issue before, this is how I fix it. The more we open space for creativity to flow, because we know, oh, okay, I know what's wrong with this, let's fix this quickly and go back to creative work. It's not always a quick fix. Technology, as you girls know, plays tricks. But the more we work on it, the more we know, and the more we're used to it and able to fix those things. And so, yeah, learning how to make your gear, what you have, enhance your workflow is super important. Sometimes you don't need a lot of gear, but knowing what you have is cool. It's very powerful. Yeah, that's a good question. I try to get as much information from the artist as possible, and the more I know about their personality, the better. I try to even if I don't know the person, have coffee, talk about not just music, but what do they do other than music? What's their life like? What made them, get to the work they're doing now. As an example, if my artist is a painter as well as a songwriter, which has happened before, it was one of the first projects I worked on, I'm gonna try to find sounds or ways to manipulate that sound so we can capture that side of their personality too. Are we gonna add more vocals and make them splash around? How does she paint? Is it intuitive? We're thinking about who should be playing, which instrument should be playing, which instrument will get the spotlight, and when. We don't want to make, most of the time, we don't want to make things hectic. We want to make something that will be nice to listen to, right? There are artistic ways of doing everything, but it's all a vision. It's all about what's the end goal, and that has to do a lot with what the artist is looking for. And music production is very similar to live performances sometimes, arranging things, making space for each instrument. So, and even sometimes if the production is fully digital and we're playing most of the instruments, if not all the instruments, I want to make sure that I'm not just trying to fill up space with sound, but have an actual vision of what emotion that song should bring, and how to create that map. So I think that's the artistic sense. It comes different every time, every song. Is just really thinking about it and taking the time to process what we want to be, what we want to do, and what's the idea that we're trying to pass. Usually I get a song that has harmony, lyrics, and melody, usually. Sometimes it could be just a melody or just lyrics. Most of the time it's a demo with vocals and guitar, or vocals and piano. That's the most usual. and then we'll take a look at the form of the song, the lyrics, see if anything need to change, or if, you know, think a little bit deeper into that, depending. It always depends on the artist too. Some artists some artists are also produce, so they have a clear vision of how they want things to go. Some artists are not into that. They do the lyrics, they do the harmony, and they're like, okay. So there are always different ways to act creatively too with the form, you know, so I help with that. And then planning which instruments we'll be playing and how the emotional graph of that song is going to go, pretty much preparing the arrangement, the musical arrangement for it. We also look at the budget that we have, so how much needs to be allocated to, you know, pay for the studio, for the musicians, the mix, the master, and that helps figure out what the limitations are. Maybe we, you know, if the budget is so and so, maybe we can only afford like these musicians, maybe we shouldn't hire an orchestra for this song. So there's always that part of it. But then after the production is done and the artist is happy with the production and the producer's mix, we balance everything to make sure, you know, like where the instruments come in and out. Then I send that producer's mix to a mixing engineer with all the individual tracks, and they will make sure everything sounds balanced and coherent, and they'll add their creative touch sometimes to it. They'll add depth to the sound, movement, and that all has to do with all the tools that we have and the technology and the digital audio workstations, where we call them the DAWs, DAWs. And then after that, there's the mastering process. So we send that to a mastering engineer, and they'll put the cherry on top. They'll make sure the track will sound great in every medium, like if it's a car, if it's speakers, earbuds, computer, cell phone, so on, so forth. And that they will sound similar to other tracks in the same style. So when you're listening to music, from one song to the other, you won't have to keep changing the volume knob, just so everything will sound crazy. So they make sure everything will be smooth and it will sound good and everything. So that's every step that needs to be done to create a great track, and from recording to mastering, even from creating the song, right? None of these steps are there to fix any issues. They're really there to make the details of the song shine. So they're all very important, and in this day and age, sometimes the producer could be doing all of them, but a lot of the times we'll just allocate those different, like the producer, the mixing engineer, the mastering engineer. Those are very important people. Knowing how to do all of these things at a certain level, a little bit, or depending on, you know, like just studying those things, helps a lot in communicating with those professionals, because you understand their challenges, you can put yourself in their shoes, and that's really, really helpful. The more you know, the more details you give them, the easier it is to convey your artistic vision. For example, one rock song I wrote in college I was still in college, and this song had a very psychedelic feel to it. The vocals were very simple, but the idea was that the guitar was a character in the song, and it had to be dark and just like the vocal elements were, and it was less of an accompaniment. The guitar wasn't that much of an accompaniment on the song, but it had more of a texture element to it, and that's hard to explain, right? It's not an easy thing to explain, and everyone will have a different reaction to your directions. So there's no magic potion that will make people understand, and some words will make person A understand it, and person B will have no clue what you're talking about. So everyone will have different reactions. And so I often say that being a music producer is pretty much like being a film director. Like, you have to know the process, the goal, the vision, and help everybody in the team get there with you for the artist. Regardless if the artist is you or somebody else, like, you have to be able to communicate. So I think that's every time is it's different. You have to know who you're talking to and what the background is. So when you know the technicalities of it and how that process works, that makes all the difference, because then you can talk to them like kind of equal, you know. You know what they're going through.
What would you consider to be the most challenging aspect of composing music?
I think that would be hearing a director's idea, like I mentioned before, and really translate it into music. You know, like, again, not everyone knows how to explain what they want in musical terms, so it's actually super rare, I think. So being patient, communicating, it's key, and it can be challenging when when you're trying to figure out what they want. But it's really important to pay attention to that vision, because music can change what a scene is represented. And when we're talking to film composing, right? Like, you can make it funny or you can make it emotional. Like, you can turn a funny scene completely upside down, or like an emotional scene, you can make it funny, which could be kind of cool. But if that's not what the director wants, we're in trouble. So it can be music can be very powerful. So the absence of it is powerful too. So, and that's a big challenge. It's challenging to know where the silence is needed too. So that's another aspect of it. So those two things, communication and knowing where to pull back and just, be on the background and just finding that emotion, finding that balance. It's challenging, and it's super important. I really like when we're able to bring the art to life and like bring somebody's vision into something that they couldn't even imagine before. Like, when you're working with an artist and they're there, they don't really know sometimes what's, they have their vision, they give that to you, but they don't really have that picture. Like, they don't know what you're gonna do. So when you do the production, you put all the instruments together and you show it to them, and they're like, oh my god, this is exactly what I was talking about. That's like, oh my god, that's such a good moment. Like, to see that you're able to recreate that vision that they had in their head, like, and just the process of it, the creative process of it's really fun for me. The recording and helping get that emotion, recording vocals is really fun to me. Getting that emotion and helping them, shape the make sure that everything that's being talked about in those lyrics in the song, that it's all being conveyed. Because sometimes it's very hard. Like, as a singer, I know how hard it is to do it on your own, and to realize, like, to be aware of what you're doing as you're trying to be the artist, to be in that emotion. So that's really fun. That's probably one of my favorite parts, is the result of it and that process of creating it. Not so much I know how to do the technical stuff, and I love it, but the creative part, the artistic part of it, and the results, just like, oh, it's great.
Today's music producer is handling every role that we had 5 different guys handling 10 years ago. They are engineering and mixing as they are writing the songs. They're playing the instruments, choosing the co-writers, supplying the studios. They even balance the finances of the project. Many of today's producers have even absorbed the A&R roles that historically fell on the shoulders of the record label. They're finding the artists, spending the development time nurturing them, and then bringing them into the label on a silver platter. Camille Hanna, Serenity West Recordings.
Nice. Yeah, there are a lot of he's and guys on it. And that's just funny how the industry is developing, and it's true. It's true that that I wasn't there being a music producer 10 years ago, but it seems to be that, right? We are playing all different instruments. They're all there. It's super valuable to know how to play them. It's not a must, but it's super valuable to do so. Especially when you're starting out. It's not like when you're starting out, it's not like you have a giant budget to do everything. So what you have is yourself, and maybe you've got friends to help out. Maybe you've got, there's no specific path. But now, because there's so much in the hands of the artist too, you can record a song, you can produce a song, and you can distribute it, market it, and do everything independently. You don't need a label to be successful necessarily, and you can't reach a lot of people without a label. And it's and because of the technology, I think, because of all the possibilities we have, I think it's becoming more and more common for us to just do everything at home sometimes, or booking a studio and doing everything from there. And it is a thing, and it's not necessarily good or bad. I think the quote might be seeing it in a way that that things are harder nowadays to create. You have to know a lot, but I think that's for everyone, for every career, right? Like, now we have so much information at our fingertips that we feel that we have to know all this stuff, because it's not like you have the possibility to do it. So it gives you, but in the end, it gives you more flexibility. It gives you more power to change things and independence. So I do like that, and I do enjoy all the process of doing all those things. Learning all that. It's so cool. It's a world of possibilities. Like, in that challenge, there's also the reward of it, like the reward of doing all of that. But it is true, and especially like finances of the projects. There's that's important too, like helping the artist sometimes, like realize what the whole process is. And we don't really, I don't really do the A&R part of it, and just the whole distribution and marketing and so on, but knowing it and knowing to tell your artist, like the artist you're working with, that process is ahead of them, and that's important. That's another thing too. The more we know, the better, like in the end we're more well equipped to deal with the industry that's always changing. So yeah, there's the good part, and there's a lot of work part of it, but it's awesome. I think my advice is, first of all, have fun with it, and never forget to have fun with it. Like, write it on a paper, put it on the wall, put it on the ceiling, ever I can see it, because it's overwhelming. There's a lot of material out there. There's so much YouTube. There's so many resources out there, and learning, always continuing learning. If you don't know an instrument, learn an instrument. But go at your own pace. Like, look for artists. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to communicate. Like, communicating with people is key. Finding people that you like working with. Networking is half the job. Like knowing people and knowing like who to count with, you know, when you're doing work and when you're learning, really. Like work with people that are better than you. Like be with people that are way better than you in the room, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm absorbing all that. You know, don't be afraid of that. Get used to that, because that's the best way to learn. And I guess the other thing is just not limiting yourself because you don't have all the gear. It's very easy to see everyone like on YouTube, on groups, or you know, like that, have a bunch of gear already, and we don't know how long they took to get to that point. And it's not a must. It's whatever you have, be creative and use what you have, and keep pushing it. As long as you're having fun with it, you're doing a great job.